A seemingly at first ordinary new Ministry of Defense, MOD, report circulating in the Kremlin today noting that the scheduled deployment of 2 additional space-age resonance and very high-frequency artificial intelligence-aided early warning phased array radar systems in the Arctic will soon join the 3 others already in operation in this region atop our world, leaps into the extraordinary with a further notation that these radar systems able to detect aircraft flying at Mach 20 speeds, over 15,300 miles per hour, have been linked to the Planetary Defense Coordination Office that's under the command of NASA's Planetary Sciences Division, but whose exact reasons for this being so are mostly shrouded in a classified at the highest level of special importance appendix to this report, the mind-blowing title of which is The Betelgeuse Apocalypse, a reference to the 11th brightest star in the night sky named Betelgeuse located in the constellation of Orion that scientists the world over are now sounding grave warnings about as it mysteriously dims to insignificance for the first time in recorded history, and is the same constellation of Orion that, on December 30, 1983, American scientists reported finding a mysterious heavenly body possibly as large as the giant planet Jupiter and possibly so close to Earth that it would be part of this solar system, a discovery explaining why Betelgeuse is dimming as this mysterious heavenly body blocks out its light, and in the decades since its discovery in 1983, has been accompanied by all of the planets in our solar system mysteriously heating up, most pronounced on the planet Mars where, in 2016, scientists declared its ice age was ending, and this week saw NASA releasing dramatic photographs of a polar ice cap on Mars collapsing, all of which comes at the same time astronomers from around the world are reporting mysterious clockwork radio signals are bombarding our planet from deep in outer space, and are signals coming from space that, likewise, were reported by one of human history's greatest geniuses, Nikola Tesla, who on Christmas Day, December 25, 1900, wrote an urgent letter to the American Red Cross stating, "I have observed electrical actions, which have appeared inexplicable. Faint and uncertain though they were, they have given me a deep conviction and foreknowledge that ere long all human beings on this globe, as one, will turn their eyes to the firmament above, with feelings of love and reverence, thrilled by the glad news, brethren. We have a message from another world, unknown and remote." It reads, 1. 2. 3. According to the very limited portions of this highly classified MOD report permitted to be openly discussed among various ministries, its appendix titled The Betelgeuse Apocalypse astonishingly has an entire section devoted to polyphasic sleep, a variant of a sleep pattern that is set in opposition to monophasic sleep, as in monophasic sleep, an individual or an animal sleeps in a single block during a single wake sleep cycle of 24 hours, as opposed to polyphasic sleep that conforms to the Latin siesta, which means the 6th hour nap, but is, also, a polyphasic sleep pattern seen in history's greatest minds, to include Nikola Tesla, Leonardo da Vinci, Napoleon, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Edison, and most noted in this instance Winston Churchill, who, in 1939, while his British nation was on the brink of World War II, mysteriously wrote, but never published, an 11-page essay he titled Are We Alone in the Universe?, thus making Churchill the first leader in modern history to opine about alien life on other planets, and saw him writing, "I, for one, am not so immensely impressed by the success we are making of our civilization here that I am prepared to think we are the only spot in this immense universe which contains living, thinking creatures, or that we are the highest type of mental and physical development which has ever appeared in the vast compass of space and time." 42 years after Winston Churchill penned his Are We Alone in the Universe? essay, this report continues. President Ronald Reagan came to office in the United States on January 20, 1981, and like Churchill saw Reagan being a polyphasic sleeper, too, and whom immediately upon taking office, saw Reagan receiving the news that Dr. Richard Harrington and his colleague, Dr. Thomas Van Flandern, of the U.S. Naval Observatory, had told a meeting of the American Astronomical Society that irregularities in the orbit of Pluto indicated that the solar system contained a 10th planet. Following this stunning January 1981 news, this report details, NASA, on June 19, 1982, reported to President Reagan that persistent irregularities in the orbits of Uranus and Neptune suggested some kind of mystery object is really there. A shock discovery followed on January 30, 1983, when American astronomers announced that out beyond the farthest reaches of the known solar system something seems to be tugging at Uranus and Neptune as gravitational forces kept perturbing these two giant planets, causing irregularities in their orbits, with their saying that this force suggests a presence far away and unseen, a large object that may be the long-sought Planet X. And on December 30, 1983, saw the entire world being stunned when the United States announced that a heavenly body possibly as large as the giant planet Jupiter and possibly so close to Earth that it would be part of this solar system has been found in the direction of the constellation Orion by an orbiting telescope aboard the U.S. infrared astronomical satellite. With President Reagan knowing that this shock December 1983 discovery announcement was going to be made, this report notes, 8 months earlier, on March 23, 1983, he shocked the American people during a nationwide television with the news that he was launching a Star Wars initiative, an initiative Reagan couched in the Cold War-era rhetoric of his times as being able to protect the U.S. from Soviet ICBMs coming from outer space, but whose true purpose behind was revealed on the momentous day of November 19, 1985, and was when Reagan met for the first time with Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev and astonishingly asked him, "What would you do if the United States were attacked by someone from outer space? Would you help us?" To which Gorbachev instantly replied, "No doubt about it." Less than a month after President Reagan asked for Soviet military aid if the United States was attacked from outer space, this report states, he made an address to the students and faculty of Falston High School in Falston, Maryland about his meeting with Soviet leader Gorbachev, but in the middle of, saw him suddenly stopping and beyond amazement admitting, "I couldn't help but one point in our discussions privately with General Secretary Gorbachev when you stop to think that we're all God's children, wherever we may live in the world, I couldn't help but say to him, just think how easy his task and mine might be in these meetings that we held if suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species, from another planet, outside in the universe." 2 years later, in 1987, this report further notes, President Reagan gave his last address to the assembled world leaders at the United Nations where he stunned them all into silence with his near-tearful plea. In our obsession with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside, universal threat to make us recognize this common bond. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? In the 33 years since President Reagan stunned world leaders into silence with his question, "And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?" this report concludes, the United States has rampaged across the globe with its military forces in what can only be described as a desperate search for something, exclusively targeting our world's most ancient lands whose cultures reach back to the dawn of civilization, cultures whose myths and legends all describe their being begun by an alien race who live on a massive planet circling our sun in the outermost reaches of our solar system. A desperate search, however, now being ended by President Donald Trump, who, like Winston Churchill and President Reagan, is a polyphasic sleeper needing only 4 to 5 hours of sleep a day, thus making his sleep pattern a near match for Nikola Tesla, whom Trump knows more about than any person alive, as after Tesla was found dead in January 1943 in his hotel room in New York City, the U.S. government swooped in and took possession of all the property and documents from his room at the New Yorker hotel, to include the plans for a powerful particle beam weapon, known as the death ray, he said he invented, all of which was handed over to one of the smartest men in America at that time, Professor John G. Trump, Ph.D., whom President Trump grew up at the knees of, and called Uncle John, and explains why. On March 12, 2018, President Trump, over the objections of his own defense department, set his sights firmly on outer space like President Reagan did and called for the creation of a space force, a call Trump followed, on June 18, 2018, with an executive order to make it so, and on December 20, 2019, saw this Space Force becoming the sixth branch of the U.S. military, the undisputed leader of which is Commander-in-Chief President Donald Trump, that, in fact and reality. Makes Trump human history's first and only planetary Space Force commander, and if his past actions are a predictor of his future ones, shows that any illegal space aliens daring to attack our world have a vicious fight on their hands or claws, or tentacles, or whatever they use.